What happens when the person who buys you like property turns out to be the only one who can save you? What if the mate who rejected you was never your true mate at all? And what if the broken Omega standing on an auction block is actually the most powerful wolf alive, hidden in plain sight? This is the story of Lyra, a wolf who lost everything in one brutal night. Rejected, sold, poisoned, left to die. But fate had other plans. Because the cold, ruthless alpha king who bought her broken body didn't know he was purchasing his own salvation. What follows is a journey through betrayal and rebirth, through 5 impossible trials that will test whether love can truly conquer death itself. This is a story where the powerless become powerful, where the broken become unbreakable, and where the greatest strength is not dominance but sacrifice. Before we begin, if you love stories of fated mates, second chances, and love that transcends even death, make sure to subscribe. You won't want to miss a single moment of Lyra and Kael's journey. Trust me, the twists ahead will leave you breathless. Now, let's step into a world where every heartbeat could change fate, where love and death are bound by the same mark. Chapter 1. What happens when your own pack sells you to slavers after your mate rejects you in front of everyone? Lyra stood on the auction block, silver chains burning into her wrists and ankles. Each breath felt like swallowing glass. The scars across her back throbbed where her former pack had whipped her just hours before. Around her, wolves in expensive clothing laughed and pointed at her broken form. "Look at those scars," someone shouted. "Damaged goods." "An Omega," another sneered. "Probably can't even shift anymore." Lyra kept her eyes on the ground. 48 hours ago, she had stood in front of her entire pack as Marcus, her mate, grabbed her face and said the words that shattered her world. "I, Marcus of the Shadowpine Pack, reject you, Lyra, as my mate. You are too weak, too pathetic, too Omega to stand beside me." The bond had snapped like a physical cord breaking inside her chest. She had collapsed, screaming, as her wolf howled in agony and then went silent. Completely silent. For the first time in her life, she was alone in her own head. Her pack had watched with cold eyes. Her own father had been the one to drag her to the slavers that very night. "At least we can get something for her," he had said, as if she were livestock. Now she stood here, poisoned and dying, though no one knew it yet. She could feel the toxin working through her veins, burning slowly. Her former pack had made sure she would die slowly and painfully. A final punishment for the crime of being born weak. The auctioneer, a rat-faced man with yellowed teeth, grabbed her chin and forced her head up. "This Omega may be scarred, but she is young, biddable, perfect for manual labor or whatever else you desire." Bile rose in Lyra's throat. The crowd laughed. 50 silver, someone called out lazily. 50 silver for this wreck? Another voice mocked. 30, and that's generous. Lyra closed her eyes. Let it end quickly. She prayed to the moon goddess who had abandoned her. Just let me die before they can use me. Then the temperature in the room dropped. The laughter died instantly. Lyra felt it before she saw him. A presence so powerful it made her damaged wolf stir for the first time in 2 days. The crowd parted like water. He walked through the auction house like death itself. Tall, broad-shouldered, with black hair and eyes like frozen silver. He wore all black, and across his right hand were scars that spoke of countless kills. This was Kael, the Alpha King. The wolf so ruthless that entire packs surrendered rather than face his wrath. Rumors said he had killed his own mate on their wedding night. Rumors said he felt nothing, cared for nothing, lived only to expand his territory and power. Kael did not even look at the auction block. He stared straight ahead, bored, as if this entire place disgusted him. "My lord," the auctioneer scrambled forward, bowing so low his nose nearly touched the floor. "We are honored. Is there something specific you seek? We have warriors, servants, pleasure slaves." "The broken one." Kael's voice was ice. "On the block." Every head turned to Lyra. She lifted her eyes and met his gaze for one brief second. Those silver eyes were empty. Completely empty. Like looking into a frozen wasteland where nothing lived. "The Omega?" The auctioneer sounded shocked. "My lord, surely you want something of better quality." "We have. Did I ask for your opinion?" Kael's voice dropped to a deadly whisper. The auctioneer went white. "No, my lord. Of course not. The bidding stands at 50 silver. 10,000 gold. The room gasped. 10,000 gold could buy a small kingdom. For a broken Omega, it was incomprehensible. "Sold," the auctioneer screamed, terrified to lose the sale. "Sold to the Alpha King." Kael turned and walked away without another glance. Two of his guards moved toward the auction block. Lyra's legs gave out as they approached. The poison was accelerating. Her vision blurred. "Please," she whispered, though she did not know what she was begging for. "Death. Mercy. An end to the pain." The guards caught her before she hit the ground. As soon as their hands touched her arms, Lyra felt the darkness rushing in. Her last conscious thought was confusion. Why would the most powerful wolf alive by a dying Omega? She collapsed completely, her body finally surrendering to the poison racing through her blood. The guards lifted her limp form easily, carrying her out of the auction house and into a black carriage bearing the royal seal. Inside the carriage, Kael sat in silence, staring out the window. He did not look at the unconscious girl his men laid on the opposite bench. His jaw was tight, his hands clenched. "My lord," one guard ventured carefully. "Should we take her to the servants' quarters?" "The east wing," Kael said coldly. "Third floor. Lock the door." The guards exchanged glances but said nothing. The east wing was where the Alpha King kept his most valuable prisoners. As the carriage rolled through the night toward the palace, Lyra's body began to convulse. Black veins spread across her neck and face as the poison reached her heart. She had perhaps hours left. Maybe less. Kael finally looked at her. His expression did not change. He simply watched her dying with those frozen silver eyes, as if she were a specimen under glass. "Another piece on the board," he murmured to himself. Nothing more. But his hand, hidden in the shadows of the carriage, was clenched so tight that his claws had drawn blood from his own palm. Sometimes our worst moments are doorways to our destiny. Lyra was about to discover that the king who bought her broken body had no idea he had just purchased the one soul who could heal his frozen heart. Or destroy him completely. Chapter 2. What happens when you wake up in a palace, chained to a bed, only to discover you were bought to die slowly for someone else's benefit? Lyra's eyes opened to softness. Silk sheets. A canopy bed. Walls painted with murals of wolves running under the moon. For a moment, she thought she was dead, and this was some cruel afterlife. Then the pain hit. Her entire body felt like it was burning from the inside out. She tried to move and heard the clink of chains. Heavy iron shackles locked her wrists to the bedposts. Not tight enough to hurt, but impossible to break. "You are awake." Lyra's head snapped toward the voice. Kael sat in a chair by the window, backlit by morning sun. He looked even more terrifying in daylight. Sharp features, cold eyes, and an expression of absolute indifference. "Where am I?" Her voice came out as a rasp. "My palace. The east wing." He stood and walked toward the bed with the grace of a predator. "You have been unconscious for 16 hours. My healer kept you alive. Kept her alive. Not saved her." The distinction was important. Kael pulled a rolled parchment from his coat and tossed it onto the bed beside her. "This is your contract. You will sign it." "Contract." Lyra stared at the document. Her vision was still blurry from the poison. "You now belong to me. I purchased you legally." Kael's voice was clinical, detached. "You will serve a specific purpose. My sister, Sarah, is dying from a curse. She requires regular transfusions of Omega blood to slow the curse's progression. You will provide that blood." The words hit Lyra like physical blows. He had not bought her for labor or service. He had bought her to bleed. "You are going to drain me until I die," she whispered. "Yes." Kael showed no emotion. "Sign the contract." Lyra looked at him, really looked at him. On his left hand, he wore a black band on his ring finger. Everyone in the wolf world knew what that meant. His fated mate had died. He was unmated and would remain so forever. Something about that black band made her unutterably sad. Even through her own pain, she felt a flicker of sympathy for this frozen king. "What if I refuse?" she asked quietly. "Then you die here, in this bed, from the poison already in your system." Kael tilted his head. "At least if you sign, your death will serve a purpose. My sister lives a few more months. You die knowing you saved someone." It was the cruelest kindness Lyra had ever heard. Her hand shook as she reached for the quill he offered. What choice did she have? Die now or die serving someone else? At least one option meant something. She signed. Kael took the contract without a word and left the room. The door locked behind him with a heavy click. 3 hours later, the healer arrived. She was an older woman with kind eyes that looked horrified when she examined Lyra. "Child," she whispered, "you have been poisoned. Wolfsbane mixed with silver dust. Whoever did this wanted you to suffer. How long do I have?" Lyra asked. The healer's silence was answer enough. 2 weeks. Maybe less. The woman's hands glowed with healing magic as she worked, but Lyra could tell it was barely slowing the poison. I am so sorry. When the healer returned to Kael's study to report, her face was pale. My lord, the girl is dying. The poison is too advanced. If we extract blood now, she will die within days instead of weeks. Kael stood at his window, looking out over his kingdom. His back was rigid. Then we extract what we need before she dies. My lord, the healer was horrified. She is a living being, not a resource to be harvested. That will be all. Kael's voice was ice. The healer bowed stiffly and left. As soon as the door closed, Kael's facade cracked for just a moment. His fist slammed into the stone wall beside the window hard enough to crack it. Prepare the antidote, he said to the empty room. Then louder. I know you are listening. Prepare the antidote. Spare no expense. I do not care if you have to drain the treasury. In the shadows, a servant bowed and disappeared. Back in Lyra's room, something impossible was happening. As she lay in the silk sheets, chains on her wrists dying slowly, a voice spoke in her mind. Her wolf. The wolf that had been silent since Marcus's rejection. Mate. Lyra's entire body went rigid. No. It was impossible. She was hallucinating from the poison. Her wolf was broken. This was not real. Mate, her wolf said again, stronger this time. Our mate is here. Stop, Lyra whispered aloud. You are not real. I am dying. This is just my mind breaking. But her wolf growled, insistent and suddenly, blessedly alive inside her consciousness. The king. Our mate is the king. Lyra's eyes widened in horror. No, the moon goddess would not be that cruel. To give her a second mate, only for him to be the cold, heartless king who had bought her to bleed her dry? It had to be the poison talking. It had to be. But deep in her chest, in the hollow space where Marcus's rejected bond had left a wound, something flickered. Something that felt terrifyingly like hope. Cruelty often masks the deepest fear of caring. Kael had bought Lyra to save his sister, but fate had other plans. The broken Omega and the frozen king were about to discover that some bonds cannot be purchased or denied. They can only be survived. Chapter 3. What happens when the person you are bleeding for turns out to be the kindest soul you have ever met, and you realize you would die for her anyway? The blood extraction was scheduled for dawn. Lyra had not slept. Her body was failing, the poison working faster now. Black veins had spread across her neck and down her arms. Every breath was a struggle. When the guards came to escort her, she could barely walk. They half-carried her through marble hallways until they reached a medical wing that smelled of herbs and antiseptic. On a bed in the center of the room lay a young woman who looked like sunlight made flesh. Despite her obvious illness, she had warm brown eyes, golden hair, and a smile that could melt stone. Oh no, the young woman said immediately, struggling to sit up. No. She is worse off than I am. Brother, you cannot be serious. Kael stood in the corner like a dark statue. Lie back down, Sarah. I will not. Sarah's voice was weak but fierce. Look at her. She is dying. So are you. Kael's voice was flat. Lyra swayed on her feet. The room was spinning. Through her blurred vision, she saw Sarah looking at her with such genuine distress that something in Lyra's chest cracked open. When was the last time anyone had looked at her with concern? My name is Sarah, the young woman said gently, ignoring her brother completely. What is yours? Lyra, she whispered. Lyra. Sarah smiled despite her weakness. That is beautiful. I am so sorry you are here. If I could refuse this treatment, I would. Your Highness, the healer interrupted nervously. We must begin before the girl collapses. They strapped Lyra to a medical chair. She did not resist. What was the point? The needle pierced her vein, and dark red blood began to flow through a tube toward Sarah's arm. Immediately, Lyra felt weaker. The room tilted. But through her failing vision, she watched Sarah. Watched the color return to the princess's cheeks. Watched her breathing ease. At least, Lyra thought distantly, someone benefits from my death. Sarah was watching her too, tears streaming down her face. I am so sorry, she whispered. I am so sorry. The extraction took 20 minutes. When it was over, Lyra could not stand. The guards caught her as she fell. Take her back to her room, Kael ordered. But his eyes lingered on Lyra's unconscious form for a moment too long. Over the next 3 days, something unexpected happened. Sarah insisted on visiting Lyra between treatments. She would sit beside the bed and talk, just talk about everything and nothing. about the curse on the royal bloodline that killed every female heir before age 25, about how she had 3 months left, about her love of painting and music and the roses that grew in the south garden. Lyra, weak and dying, found herself actually listening, actually caring. "Why are you kind to me?" Lyra asked during one visit. "I am just a blood source." Sarah looked horrified. "You are a person, a wolf with feelings and dreams and a life that was stolen from you." She reached out and gently took Lyra's shackled hand. "I hate that my life costs yours. I hate it so much." Lyra felt something she had not felt since her rejection. Connection. Real, genuine connection with another soul. "If my death means you live," Lyra said quietly, "then at least it means something." Sarah started to cry. On the 4th day, everything went wrong. Lyra was in the middle of a blood extraction, strapped to the medical chair, when the doors to the wing exploded inward. 6 wolves in black masks poured into the room, silver blades gleaming. "Assassins!" The healer screamed. The guards drew weapons. But the assassins moved with supernatural speed, cutting down guards in seconds. They were heading straight for Sarah. Something primal ignited in Lyra's chest. Not her broken wolf. Something deeper. Something that said, "No. Not her. Not the first person who has been kind to me in months." Lyra ripped the needle from her arm. The shackles on the medical chair were not meant to hold someone fighting for another's life. She shattered them with a strength that should have been impossible for a dying Omega. She threw herself in front of Sarah's bed just as an assassin's blade came down. The poison blade pierced Lyra's shoulder instead of Sarah's heart. The new poison mixed with the old poison already in her system. Agony exploded through every nerve. But Lyra did not move from in front of Sarah. She bared her teeth and growled, a feral sound that echoed with something ancient and powerful. The assassin hesitated, confused. This was supposed to be a weak Omega. Then Kael arrived. The Alpha King's rage was a physical force. He moved through the assassins like a wolf through sheep, ripping throats, breaking necks, painting the medical wing red. His face was a mask of pure fury. Within 90 seconds, all 6 assassins were dead. Kael stood in the center of the carnage, breathing hard, silver eyes blazing. Then he saw Lyra. She was still standing in front of Sarah's bed, swaying, blood pouring from her shoulder. Her eyes were unfocused. She looked at Kael without recognition. "Sarah," she slurred. "Is Sarah safe?" Then she collapsed. Kael caught her before she hit the ground. His hands, still covered in assassin blood, cradled her with a gentleness that shocked everyone in the room. Those hands were shaking. "Healer," he roared. "Now!" He carried Lyra himself to a private treatment room. Laid her on the bed himself. Stood over the healer as she worked with frantic speed. "The new poison mixed with the old," the healer said, voice shaking. "My lord, she is ours. Maybe 3. I cannot. Fix it." Kael's voice was deadly quiet. "I do not care what it costs. Fix it." In the treatment room, something impossible happened. As Kael's hand hovered over Lyra's, almost touching, a spark of electricity jumped between them. Visible. Tangible. The mate bond trying to ignite. Kael jerked back as if burned. His face went white. Sarah had followed despite her weakness. She stood in the doorway, eyes wide. She saw the spark. She saw her brother's face. "Brother," she whispered. "She is your." "Do not." Kael's voice was sharp as broken glass. "Do not say it." "But she is." "I said, do not say it." Kael's hands clenched into fists. "It is impossible. It is another curse. Another trick." Sarah looked at her brother, then at the dying girl on the bed who had just thrown herself in front of a blade meant for her. "She saved my life," Sarah said quietly. "She was dying, and she still saved me." Kael said nothing. He just stared at Lyra's unconscious form, his expression a war between terror and something that looked dangerously like longing. True nobility is protecting others even when you are already broken. Lyra had proven that. But what she did not know yet was that her act of selfless courage had just forced the Alpha King to confront the one thing he feared most. The possibility of caring for someone again. And in the shadows of the palace, the antidote Kael had secretly commissioned was finally ready. The question was whether it would arrive in time to save the girl who had just saved his sister. The girl who might be his fated mate. Chapter 4. What happens when the mate bond you thought was impossible suddenly ignites so powerfully that neither of you can deny it, but he throws you in a dungeon anyway. Kael did not leave Lyra's bedside for 3 days. He told himself it was strategic. She had saved Sarah. She deserved to live long enough to be properly compensated. Nothing more. But his court knew better. The Alpha King, who felt nothing, who had not shown emotion in 5 years, sat vigil over a dying Omega girl. Whispers spread through the palace like wildfire. Lyra drifted in and out of consciousness, trapped in fever dreams. In those dreams, she saw things she should not be able to see. Memories that were not hers. She saw Kael on his wedding day 5 years ago. Saw him smiling, actually smiling, at a beautiful woman with dark hair and green eyes. Elena, his bride, his supposed fated mate. She saw the wedding night. Saw Elena pull a silver blade from beneath her pillow and drive it toward Kael's heart while he slept. Saw him wake just in time. Saw the betrayal shatter across his face. You were never my mate, Elena hissed in the memory. The Crimson Kingdom paid me to manipulate the bond. To kill you on our wedding night and leave your territory vulnerable. She saw Kael's hands close around Elena's throat. Saw the light leave her eyes. Saw him stand over her body, expressionless, as something inside him died along with her. I will never feel again, he whispered to her corpse. Never trust again. Never love again. And he had kept that promise. For 5 years, he had been a frozen wasteland of a man. Lyra woke gasping, tears streaming down her face. Not for herself, but for him. For the man who had been so broken that he had locked away his entire heart. Kael was there instantly, leaning forward in his chair. You are awake. Their eyes met. And this time, when the mate bond tried to spark between them, it did not just flicker. It ignited like wildfire. Lyra reached out without thinking, her hand moving toward his. Kael's hand moved to meet hers, equally unconscious. The moment their skin touched, the bond exploded to life. Golden light burst between their palms. The mate mark began to burn onto both their wrists, a crescent moon symbol that glowed with power. The bond snapped into place with such force that both of them gasped. Kael could feel everything. Her pain, her fear, her compassion, her strength hidden under layers of trauma. It was overwhelming, terrifying, beautiful. He ripped his hand away like she had burned him. No. His voice was raw. No. This is not real. This is another trick. Another curse. Lyra stared at her wrist where the mate mark was already fading since he had broken contact. But she had felt it. Felt him. Felt the howling emptiness inside him and the terror beneath his rage. Kael, she whispered, using his name for the first time. Do not. He stood abruptly, backing away from the bed. Do not say my name. Do not look at me like that. You are a witch. You manufactured this bond somehow. I am not. Liar. Kael's roar shook the room. His eyes were wild, desperate. You are a spy. A plant. Just like Elena. Someone sent you to trick me, to make me weak again. Nobody sent me. I was sold at auction, you bought me. A perfect cover story. Kael's breathing was ragged. He was spiraling, 5 years of trauma crashing over him. Guards! 6 guards burst through the door. Take her to the dungeons. Chain her in silver. She is a witch and a spy. No. Lyra struggled as the guards grabbed her. She was still so weak from the poison. Kael, please, I am not lying. The bond is real. There is no bond. Kael's face was a stone mask again, but his hands were shaking violently. There is nothing. Lock her away. They dragged Lyra from the room. She felt the mate bond stretching, straining, causing physical pain as the distance grew. She knew Kael felt it too, saw him flinch. Please, she sobbed as they hauled her down stone stairs into the darkness. Please listen to me. But he did not follow. The dungeon was exactly as terrible as expected. Cold, damp, dark. They chained her wrists and ankles in pure silver that burned her skin. Then they left her alone in the blackness. Lyra collapsed against the wall, the silver chains burning, the poison still working through her system, the mate bond aching in her chest like an open wound. She had been rejected twice now. Once by a mate who was not truly hers. Once by a mate who was but could not accept it. Moon goddess, she whispered to the darkness. What more do you want from me? Hours passed. Maybe days. In the darkness, it was impossible to tell. Lyra drifted in and out of consciousness. Then she heard footsteps. Hello, Lyra. Her blood turned to ice. She knew that voice. A torch flared to life, revealing a face she had prayed never to see again. Marcus, her first mate, the one who had rejected her and stood by while her pack sold her to slavers. Surprised, Marcus grinned, and it was a terrible thing. I have been working in this palace for months. A spy, hidden in plain sight among the servants. Why? Lyra's voice was barely a whisper. Because the Shadowpine Pack serves darker masters now. Marcus crouched in front of her cage. There is an organization called the Void Council. They want the Alpha King dead. They want his entire bloodline erased. You poisoned me, Lyra breathed, understanding flooding through her. Of course I did. Wolfsbane and silver dust, mixed into your water the night before the rejection. I knew you would be sold after I rejected you. I knew you would end up here eventually. Marcus pulled a silver blade from his belt. The plan was for you to die slowly, naturally, and they would never suspect poison. But you have complicated things by surviving this long. And now the king suspects you are something special. I cannot risk you telling him the truth. So you are going to kill me yourself. I am going to finish what I started. Marcus unlocked the cage door. Lyra had no strength left. The poison was winning. The silver chains had burned her to the bone. She could barely lift her head. But as Marcus raised the blade, something inside Lyra awakened. Her wolf. Not broken anymore. Not silent. Roaring to life with a fury that shook Lyra's entire being. And oh, her wolf snarled and power exploded outward. The silver chains shattered. Lyra's body moved on instinct, faster than she had ever moved in her life. She caught Marcus's wrist mid-strike, and her grip was iron. Marcus's eyes went wide with shock. Impossible. You are an Omega. You are weak. I am not weak. Lyra's voice echoed with power that should not exist. Her wolf surged forward, taking partial control. Lyra's eyes flashed gold, then silver, then something else entirely. Something ancient. Her nails lengthened into claws that glowed with moonlight. Marcus tried to fight back, but it was like a child fighting a hurricane. Lyra moved with inhuman speed and strength, disarming him, slamming him against the stone wall hard enough to crack it. You took everything from me, Lyra said, and her voice was layered, multiple tones speaking as one. My pack. My dignity. My life. You poisoned me and sold me like cattle. Please, Marcus whimpered. I was just following orders. And now you pay the price. Lyra did not remember the killing blow. Her wolf did it, swift and mercifully quick despite everything. When she came back to herself, Marcus was dead on the dungeon floor, and she was surrounded by silver light that poured from her skin like moonbeams. The wolf inside her was not just present. It was powerful. Impossibly powerful. What am I? Lyra whispered. Footsteps thundered down the stairs. Kael burst into the dungeon, having felt her surge of power through the bond. He stopped dead at the scene before him. Marcus's body. Lyra standing in the center of the cell, chains broken, glowing like a fallen star. You killed him. Kael's voice was awed. He tried to kill me first. Lyra swayed, the power already fading. She was still dying. This burst of strength was temporary. He was the spy. He poisoned me. He worked for the Void Council. The Void Council. Kael's face went grim. They are real. You know of them? Before Kael could answer, another figure appeared at the top of the stairs. An elderly woman with white hair and eyes that glowed with prophetic power. The Palace Oracle. She took one look at Lyra and fell to her knees. Luna Prima, the Oracle breathed. The first in 1,000 years. The prophecy is fulfilled. What? Lyra and Kael spoke simultaneously. The Oracle stood, her voice taking on the resonance of prophecy. She is no Omega. She never was. Lyra is a Luna Prima, a female alpha, the rarest wolf in existence. Born once every millennium. Her original pack knew and suppressed her power with dark magic, marking her as Omega to hide what she truly was. Lyra's legs gave out. Kael caught her on instinct, his arms wrapping around her before he could stop himself. The mate bond hummed with rightness. The rejection broke the suppression spell, the Oracle continued. Her true nature is awakening. But there is a price. The old woman's eyes were sad. If a Luna Prima completes a mate bond, she must face the trial of 5 deaths to prove her worthiness. If she fails even one trial, both she and her mate will die. Kael's arms tightened around Lyra unconsciously. She felt his fear spike through the bond. I do not want a mate, Kael said, but his voice lacked conviction. Especially one who could kill me. The Oracle looked between them. The bond has already begun. You can reject it, but doing so will destroy you both slowly. The only way forward is through the trials or death. Then we reject it, Kael said firmly, even as every instinct screamed at him to hold Lyra closer. We choose death over the trials. Brother, no. Sarah appeared behind the Oracle, leaning heavily on a servant. Her face was gray. The curse accelerated after the attack. I have days, not months. The oracle nodded gravely. Only a Luna Prima's power can break the royal curse. But she cannot access her full power until she completes the mate bond and survives the trials. The trap was perfect. Kael had to choose. Reject the mate bond and let his sister die. Or accept it and risk both his and Lyra's lives in trials that no one had survived in recorded history. Lyra felt his agony through the bond. Felt him warring with himself. She made the choice for him. I will do it, she said quietly. I will face the trials. You do not understand what you are agreeing to, Kael said roughly. I understand that Sarah will die without me. That is enough. Lyra looked up at him, meeting those frozen silver eyes. You do not have to want me as a mate. But let me save your sister. Let my death mean something. Something cracked in Kael's expression. For just a moment, the ice melted, and Lyra saw the man underneath. Terrified. Broken. Desperate. You keep trying to die for people, he said softly. Why? Because no one ever lived for me, Lyra answered. So I will live for others. Even if that living is just long enough to save one person. Our greatest power awakens when we have something worth fighting for. Lyra had found hers. Now she just had to survive 5 impossible trials alongside a mate who was too afraid to let himself feel anything at all. The question was whether love could grow in the space between terror and necessity. Lyra was about to find out. Chapter 5. What happens when you discover everything you thought you knew about yourself was a lie, and the truth makes you the most dangerous wolf alive. The oracle led them to the ancient library buried deep beneath the palace. Kael had not released Lyra yet. He carried her as if she weighed nothing, his jaw tight, saying nothing. But through the bond, Lyra felt his emotions churning. Fear, anger, and underneath it all, a desperate protectiveness that terrified him. The library was vast, filled with books older than memory. The oracle pulled a massive tome from a locked shelf and opened it to a page marked with dried moonflowers. The Luna Prima, she read aloud. Born once every 1,000 years. A female with the strength of an alpha, the compassion of an omega, and the magic of the moon goddess herself. She is prophesied to either unite the wolf clans or destroy them utterly. Lyra stared at the page. There was an illustration of a woman surrounded by silver light, wolves of every rank bowing before her. That cannot be me, she whispered. I am weak. I have been weak my entire life. Because they made you weak. The oracle's voice was gentle. Your birth pack, the Shadowpine pack, has served the Void Council for 3 generations. When you were born and the elders recognized the signs of a Luna Prima, they were terrified. So they hired a dark witch to suppress your power before you even learned to walk. They marked me as Omega, Lyra said, pieces clicking together. Made me believe I was the lowest rank. They made everyone believe it. Even you. The oracle touched Lyra's wrist where the mate mark had briefly appeared. But the moon goddess does not make mistakes. She gave you a true mate, an alpha king powerful enough to stand beside you. The rejection by Marcus was not a mistake. It was necessary to break the suppression spell. Kael finally spoke, his voice rough. The trial of 5 deaths. Explain it. The oracle's expression grew grim. When a Luna Prima finds her true mate, the bond cannot simply complete naturally. There is too much power involved. The trials exist to ensure the bond is pure, strong enough to handle the combined power of both mates. She turned pages until she found another illustration. 5 circles, each containing a different scene of horror. The first death, betrayal. You will face each other's worst memories and be tempted to betray the other to escape. The second death, self. You must sacrifice what you value most about yourselves. The third death, hope. You will be shown a future where everything has failed, and you must find hope in absolute despair. The fourth death, love. You will be given a choice between your own happiness and the other's life. The fifth death, death itself. One mate must die permanently, so the other can ascend with the Luna Prima's full power. Unless, the oracle paused. Unless what? Lyra demanded. Unless the surviving mate is willing to sacrifice everything, even their wolf, to bring the other back. But no one has ever done it. The power is too tempting. Most choose to keep it and let their mate stay dead. Silence fell like a blade. Kael set Lyra down carefully on a chair, then stepped back. And if we complete all 5 trials, then the Luna Prima comes into her full power and the mate bond becomes unbreakable. Together, you would be unstoppable. The oracle looked at Sarah, who was barely staying conscious. And yes, she could break the royal curse. But the trials usually take place over a month, one trial per week, with rest between. Sarah does not have a month, Kael said flatly. As if to prove his point, Sarah collapsed. Servants rushed to catch her. Her skin was gray, her lips blue. She was dying right before their eyes. The oracle checked Sarah's pulse and went pale. Hours. She has hours left. No. Kael's voice was deadly. No. Fix her. There has to be another way. There is not. The oracle's voice was firm. Only the Luna Prima's power can break this curse. And Lyra cannot access that power until she completes the trials. Then we do all 5 trials tonight, Lyra said. Everyone turned to stare at her. That is impossible, the oracle breathed. No one has ever survived even 3 trials back to back. The toll on the body and soul is too great. 5 in one night would kill you both. But it is possible? Lyra pressed. Technically, yes, but... Then we do it. Lyra stood, swaying, still dying from poison, and looked at Kael. You do not have to like me. You do not have to want this bond. But I will not let Sarah die when I have the power to save her. Will you? Kael looked at his sister, unconscious, barely breathing. Looked at Lyra, broken and poisoned but standing straight with determination burning in her eyes. Through the bond, he felt her resolve. Absolute. Unshakable. She would do this even if it killed her. Even if he refused to help. You infuriating, self-sacrificing, impossible woman, Kael said, and for the first time, there was a hint of warmth in his voice. Fine. We do all 5 trials. Tonight. The oracle looked horrified. You will not survive. We will. Lyra met Kael's eyes. Together. Something passed between them in that moment. Not love. Not yet. But understanding. They were 2 broken people being forced to face impossible odds for someone they both cared about. That was enough. It had to be enough. I need to tell you something first, Kael said quietly. Before we begin, you deserve to know who you are binding yourself to. Lyra waited. Elena, my first mate, was not actually my mate. The Void Council paid her to use dark magic to fake a mate bond. She tried to kill me on our wedding night. Kael's voice was emotionless, but through the bond, Lyra felt the agony underneath. I killed her with my own hands. And I swore I would never feel anything again. For 5 years, I have been a ghost walking through life. I know, Lyra said softly. I saw it. In my fever dreams. I saw your memories. Kael's eyes widened. The bond. It is already that strong. Apparently. Lyra stepped closer to him. I am not her. I am not here to hurt you. Everyone says that before they do. But Kael did not move away. Then I will just have to prove it. Lyra held out her hand. Shall we save your sister and probably die trying? Kael looked at her hand for a long moment. Then slowly he took it. The mate bond sparked again, golden and warm, wrapping around both their wrists. The trials will show us each other's souls, the oracle warned. There will be nowhere to hide. You will see everything. The good, the bad, the broken parts you have both tried to bury. Good, Lyra said. I am tired of hiding. Kael squeezed her hand once. Then let us begin. The oracle began preparing the ritual space, drawing symbols on the floor in salt and moonflower petals. Sarah was carried in and placed in a circle that would protect her while siphoning the Luna Prima power as it awakened. As Lyra and Kael stood in the center of the ritual circle, hands joined, Lyra felt her wolf stirring with anticipation. We can do this, her wolf said confidently. How do you know? Lyra asked silently. Because he is ours. And we are his. The bond may be new, but the soul recognition is ancient. Trust it. Trust him. Trust yourself. The oracle began chanting. The symbols on the floor began to glow. Reality started to shimmer and warp around them. Whatever happens in there, Kael said quietly, do not let go of my hand. I will not if you will not, Lyra promised. Deal. The world dissolved into light. The first trial was beginning. True nobility is protecting others even when you are already broken. Both Lyra and Kael had proven that already. Now they just had to survive 5 trials that would strip them bare, break them down, and rebuild them into something strong enough to hold the power of a Luna Prima bond. If they failed, they would die together. If they succeeded, they would be bound forever to someone they barely knew. Lyra decided that sounded better than dying alone in a dungeon. So she held tight to Kael's hand and walked into the first death with her eyes open. Chapter 6. What happens when you are forced to live through your mate's worst nightmare, and the only way to survive is to trust them completely, even when everything tells you they are about to destroy you. The light faded. Lyra and Kael stood in a bedroom she did not recognize. Silk sheets. Moonlight through windows. A wedding dress hanging on the wall. "This is my room," Kael said, his voice hollow. 5 years ago. My wedding night. Lyra felt his dread spike through the bond. She squeezed his hand tighter. The door opened. A woman entered, beautiful and smiling. Elena. She wore a white nightgown and carried 2 glasses of wine. "My love," she said to Kael. "To our future." Lyra watched Kael's younger self smile, actually smile, as he took the glass. She felt his happiness in that moment. His hope. His belief that he had finally found his forever. It broke her heart. They drank. Elena set her glass aside and moved closer, kissing him. Lyra felt Kael flinch beside her at the memory. "I cannot watch this," he said roughly. "You have to." The oracle's voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. "The trial demands it." The memory played forward. Kael's younger self fell asleep. Elena waited, watching him with eyes that grew colder by the second. Then she pulled the silver blade from beneath the pillow. "I am sorry," memory Elena whispered as she raised the blade. "But the Void Council pays better than love ever could." She drove the blade down toward his heart. Memory Kael's eyes snapped open. He caught her wrist inches from his chest. "What are you doing?" "What I was paid to do." Elena snarled, her beautiful face twisting with hatred. "You arrogant fool. Did you really think you deserved a fated mate? The bond was fake. I manufactured it with dark magic. You are nothing but a mark." Lyra watched present Kael's face as he relived the memory. Saw him break all over again. Memory Kael's hands closed around Elena's throat. "You used me. Made me believe." "Believe what?" "That someone could love you." Elena laughed even as she choked. "You are a monster. Cold and brutal. No one will ever love you." Memory Kael squeezed. Lyra felt his agony and rage through the bond as he killed the woman he thought was his mate. Then the memory shifted. Suddenly Lyra was no longer watching. She was Elena. She felt Elena's thoughts, Elena's mission, Elena's complete lack of remorse. And she was standing over a sleeping Kael with a blade in her hand. "Kill him," a voice whispered in her head. "Complete the trial. End him. It is the only way forward." Lyra looked down at Kael's sleeping face. Even in memory, even through Elena's eyes, she could see the peace on his face. The vulnerability. He trusted her completely in this moment. "Do it," the voice insisted. "Betray him as he expects. It is what everyone does eventually." Lyra felt the blade in her hand. Felt Elena's muscle memory, guiding her to strike at the perfect angle. One quick motion, and the trial would end. But Lyra thought of Kael carrying her to the healers. Thought of him sitting by her bedside for days. Thought of his hands shaking when the mate bond sparked. "No," Lyra said in Elena's voice. "What?" The whisper sounded shocked. "I will not." Lyra dropped the blade. It clattered on the floor. Memory Kael woke, eyes widening. "Elena." "I am not her," Lyra said, and suddenly she was herself again, standing in the memory. "I am Lyra, and I will not betray you, not even in nightmares." The memory shattered like glass. Now Kael was somewhere else. A pack house. He recognized it instantly. The Shadowpine pack. Lyra's old home. He was seeing through Lyra's eyes. She stood in the center of the pack circle. Every wolf she had ever known surrounded her. And Marcus stood before her, disgust clear on his face. "I, Marcus of the Shadowpine pack, reject you, Lyra, as my mate." Kael felt it. Felt the bond snapping, felt Lyra's wolf howling in agony, felt her heart literally breaking in her chest. The pain was excruciating. He gasped, stumbling. This was what she had survived. This soul-destroying agony? The memory continued. Lyra collapsed. Her father stepped forward, not to help, but to drag her to her feet. "At least the slavers will give us coin for her," her father said. "More than she is worth otherwise." Kael felt Lyra's devastation. Her family, her entire pack, saw her as nothing but a commodity to be sold. Then the memory shifted. Kael was Lyra's father now. "Sell her," a voice whispered. "Take the coin. She is worthless. She is nothing. Betray her. It is the only logical choice." Kael looked at memory Lyra, broken and sobbing on the ground. He felt the pull to walk away, to choose the easy path, to betray her as everyone in her life had done. He thought about his own pain, about Elena's betrayal, about how it had destroyed him. And he thought about Lyra, standing in his memory, refusing to hurt him even when the trial demanded it. "No," Kael said firmly. She is not worthless. She is not nothing. He knelt beside memory Lyra and pulled her into his arms. I am sorry they did this to you. I am sorry they made you believe you were less than extraordinary. But I see you, and I will not betray you. The memory exploded into light. Kael and Lyra stood facing each other in an endless white space, both breathing hard, both shaking from the emotional toll. You saw, Kael said hoarsely. You saw what Elena did. What I did to her. I saw, Lyra confirmed. And I still chose not to hurt you. You saw, Lyra continued, what my pack did. My family. Marcus. I saw. And I chose to hold you instead of abandoning you. Kael stepped closer. The trial wanted us to betray each other. But we did not. We did not. A mark appeared on both their wrists. A silver crescent moon glowing softly. The first trial complete. Then Lyra collapsed. Blood poured from her nose. The poison was accelerating, and the trial had drained what little strength she had left. Kael caught her, his arms steady. I have you, he said, and meant it. Kael, Lyra gasped. I do not think I can. Yes, you can. His voice was fierce. You are the strongest person I have ever met. You faced my worst memory and chose compassion. You are not giving up now. Through the bond, Lyra felt his determination. Felt him pouring strength into her through their connected wrists. The mate bond was growing stronger. We have to continue, she whispered. Sarah. I know. Kael held her tighter. Rest for 60 seconds. Then we go again. 60 seconds? That is all we have. He met her eyes. But I will carry you through this. I promise. Lyra wanted to argue that she did not need carrying. But the truth was she did. And for the first time in her life, someone was offering. Together, she said. Together, Kael agreed. The oracle's voice echoed around them. The first trial is past. But know this, the trials grow harder. The next will require you to sacrifice pieces of yourselves. Are you certain you wish to continue? Kael looked at Lyra. Lyra looked at Kael. They both thought of Sarah, dying in the circle outside the trials. We continue, they said in unison. The white space began to shift and darken. The second trial was beginning. Trust is not the absence of fear, but the choice to be vulnerable despite it. Kael and Lyra had just proven they could trust each other in the face of their worst nightmares. But the trials ahead would demand even more. They would demand pieces of their very souls. And in the real world, outside the trials, Sarah's heartbeat was growing fainter. Time was running out. Chapter 7. What happens when the only way to save the person you are learning to love is to become powerless yourself, and then face a future where everything you fought for has already failed. The darkness solidified into a massive stone chamber. Ancient symbols covered every surface, pulsing with an eerie red light. In the center stood two pedestals, each holding a glowing orb. The second trial, the oracle's voice reverberated through the space. The death of self. To proceed, you must each sacrifice what defines you. What makes you who you are? Kael approached his pedestal. Inside the orb, he saw himself as Alpha King. Saw his power, his strength, his authority. Everything he had built over years of brutal conquest and careful strategy. Your power as Alpha, the oracle intoned. Surrender it, and you may proceed. Keep it, and you both die here. Kael's jaw clenched. Without his Alpha power, he would be vulnerable. Weak. Unable to protect his kingdom, his sister, or Lyra herself. Through the bond, Lyra felt his hesitation. Felt the terror of becoming powerless after spending years building walls of strength. I know what it is like to be powerless, Lyra said softly. I survived it. You will too. Kael looked at her. At this woman who had been stripped of everything and still found the courage to stand. If I do this, I cannot protect you. Then I will protect you. Something shifted in Kael's expression. For 5 years, he had been the one protecting everyone else. The idea of being protected, of being vulnerable and safe, was foreign and terrifying and somehow appealing. He placed his hand on the orb. Power ripped from his body like a physical thing. Kael screamed as his alpha essence was torn away. His eyes, which had always glowed with dominance, dimmed to ordinary silver. His presence, which had commanded instant submission, became that of a normal wolf. He collapsed to his knees, gasping. Lyra was there instantly, holding him up. I have got you, she whispered. Kael looked at his hands, feeling the absence of power like a missing limb. I am nothing now. You are everything that matters, Lyra corrected. You are still you. The oracle's voice continued, relentless. Now you Luna Prima. Surrender your awakening power. Return to being what they made you believe you were. Omega. Powerless. Weak. Lyra approached her pedestal. Inside the orb, she saw her true self. The Luna Prima, glowing with ancient power. The strength she had just discovered. The proof that she was never actually weak. Giving this up meant returning to helplessness. Meant being vulnerable in a world that had already tried to destroy her once. But she looked at Kael, stripped of his alpha power for her. Looked at Sarah, dying beyond the trial. Looked at the mark on her wrist that said she was not alone anymore. I spent my whole life believing I was weak, Lyra said. I survived that. I can survive it again. She placed her hand on the orb. The Luna Prima power was ripped away. Lyra felt herself becoming human, truly human, with no wolf at all. The absence was devastating. Her wolf, which had just awakened, was torn away again. She fell beside Kael, both of them now powerless, human, vulnerable. We passed. Kael asked breathlessly. 2 marks glowed on their wrists now. Yes, the oracle confirmed. But the 3rd trial begins immediately. Wait, Lyra gasped. We need a moment. The chamber dissolved. They stood on a battlefield. Dead wolves everywhere. The palace behind them was burning. The sky was black with smoke and blood. This is the future, a cold voice said. It was not the oracle. Something darker. This is what happens when you fail. Kael recognized faces among the dead. His generals. His court. Everyone. Sarah, he called out desperately. Dead, the voice confirmed. 3 days ago. The curse took her while you were trapped in the trials. And without the Luna Prima's power to unite the packs, the Void Council won. They killed everyone. Lyra saw her own reflection in a broken shield. She looked decades older, scarred, hollow-eyed. You 2 are the last, the voice continued. The enemy army surrounds you. 10,000 strong. You are human now. Powerless. They will capture you, torture you for information, then kill you slowly. Shapes moved in the smoke. Thousands of wolves with red eyes, servants of the Void Council, closing in. This is the 3rd trial. The oracle's voice broke through, sad and distant. The death of hope. You are shown a future where you have failed utterly. Where everything you fought for is ashes. The only way to proceed is to find hope in absolute despair. Or, she paused. You can end it mercifully. One of you can kill the other before the enemy arrives. Save them from torture. The survivor will be allowed to proceed alone. Kael immediately pulled Lyra behind him, even though they were both weaponless and powerless. No, Kael, there are thousands. I do not care. His voice was steady despite the impossible odds. I am not killing you. I am not letting them take you. We fight. We cannot win, Lyra said, but she was already moving to stand beside him rather than behind him. I do not care about winning. Kael took her hand. I care about not giving up. About standing together. The enemy wolves rushed forward, a wave of death and fury. Kael and Lyra, human and powerless, stood back to back and fought anyway. They had no chance. Lyra knew it. Kael knew it. But they fought with fists and teeth and pure desperate courage. They broke bones and drew blood and refused to fall. 1 minute became 2. 2 became 5. They were being overwhelmed, torn apart, dying by inches. Lyra felt ribs crack. Felt claws tear her back open. But she kept fighting because Kael was still fighting beside her. Kael felt his shoulder dislocate. Felt his leg break. But he kept fighting because Lyra was still standing. Why? The dark voice sounded genuinely confused. Why keep fighting when there is no hope? When you cannot possibly win? Lyra, bleeding and broken, gasped out an answer. Because hope is not about winning. Kael continued, his voice raw. Hope is about fighting together even when everything is lost. It is about choosing to stand, Lyra said, even in the face of certain death. It is about refusing to surrender, Kael added, even when surrender is the logical choice. They pressed their backs together, both barely standing, surrounded by infinite enemies. We lost everything, Lyra said, but we still have each other. And that, Kael finished, is enough. The battlefield exploded into white light. The 3rd trial shattered. Kael and Lyra stood once more in the white space, but now their bodies bore the wounds from the trial. Lyra was bleeding from her eyes and ears. Kael's hands were shaking violently. 3 marks glowed on their wrists. You passed, the oracle sounded amazed. By finding hope not in victory, but in companionship. No pair has done that in 500 years. Lyra swayed, her vision graying. Sarah? Still alive. Barely. You must continue. I cannot, Lyra whispered. Her body was shutting down. The poison, the trials, the strain, it was too much. Kael caught her as she fell. Yes, you can. I am here. I am not letting you fall. Kael, I am dying. I know. His voice broke. But not yet. Not before we save her. Please, Lyra. Please hold on. Through the bond, Lyra felt something she had never felt from him before. Love. Raw, terrified, desperate love. You love me, she said, shocked. Apparently dying alongside someone in repeated nightmares builds affection, Kael said, but his voice was thick with emotion. Who knew? Lyra laughed, which turned into a cough that brought up blood. We are idiots. The biggest idiots. Kael held her closer. But we are idiots together. So please keep fighting. The 4th and 5th trials remain, the oracle warned. They are the worst. The 4th will make you choose between love and life. The 5th will require one of you to die permanently. How much time does Sarah have? Kael demanded. Minutes. Maybe 10. Kael looked at Lyra. We have to do both trials back to back. No rest. That will kill us, Lyra said. We are already dying. Kael cupped her face with bloody hands. But we are not dead yet. 2 more trials. Can you do 2 more? Lyra thought about Sarah's kindness. About Kael's sacrifice of his alpha power. About the mate bond growing stronger with each trial. About having finally found someone who saw her as worth saving. 2 more, she agreed. The 4th trial begins in 10 seconds, the oracle warned. I am sorry. I am so sorry. Kael pressed his forehead against Lyra's. Whatever happens in there, know that He stopped, struggling with words he had not said in 5 years. I know, Lyra whispered. I feel it through the bond. And I feel the same. Good. That is good. The white space began to shift and darken once more. Together? Lyra asked. Always, Kael promised. They held each other as the 4th trial, the death of love, began. True love is not about saving yourself. It is about standing together in the fire. Kael and Lyra had proven they could sacrifice their power, their hope, and their safety for each other. Now they would have to prove they could sacrifice their happiness too. And outside the trials, Sarah's heart beat one final, faltering rhythm before stopping completely. Chapter 8. What happens when you have to choose between a lifetime of happiness with your mate and saving their actual life, knowing that choosing right means destroying your own heart forever? The darkness cleared, and Lyra found herself somewhere beautiful. A meadow. Wildflowers everywhere. Sunshine warm on her skin. She looked down and saw she was wearing a simple dress, her body healthy and whole. No scars. No poison. No pain. Lyra. She turned and saw Kael running toward her, smiling. Actually smiling. He looked younger, lighter, happy in a way she had never seen. He swept her into his arms and kissed her, and it was perfect. Through the bond, she felt his joy, uncomplicated and pure. I thought you would sleep forever, he teased. Come on, the children are waiting. Children? Lyra said, confused. Kael took her hand and led her over a hill. There she saw a house. Their house. And playing in the garden were 3 children. 2 boys and a girl, all with Kael's dark hair and Lyra's eyes. Mama! The little girl shrieked, running to her. Lyra caught her automatically, feeling the child's solid weight, her giggling breath, her absolute trust. This was real. This was her life. She had children. She had Kael. She had survived and built something beautiful. How long have I been asleep? Lyra asked, disoriented. Just an hour, Kael laughed. But you know how the children get when you nap. They think you have been gone for years. Lyra looked around. This was not the trial. This was her life. 50 years of life, available in her memory. She remembered the children's births. Remembered growing old with Kael. Remembered peace and love, and everything she had ever wanted. Then she saw it. A flicker at the edge of her vision. The meadow rippled like a reflection in water. This is not real, she whispered. Of course it is real, Kael said, confused. Lyra, are you feeling all right? The little girl in her arms felt solid. Real. She smelled like sunshine and honey. Lyra's heart clenched painfully. A voice whispered from nowhere. This is the 4th trial. You can stay here. Live this life. 50 years of happiness await you. But the real Kael dies. Sarah dies. The Void Council wins. Or you can destroy this. Shatter your perfect life. Save them. But you will never have this. You will never have him, not like this. Choose. Lyra's hands shook. She looked at Kael, at her children, at the house they had built together. This was everything she had ever dreamed of. How long do I have to decide? She asked the air. You are already deciding. Every moment you stay, the real Kael grows weaker. Lyra closed her eyes. Through the bond, beneath the illusion, she felt the real Kael. Felt him trapped in his own nightmare. Felt his pain and fear. She looked at the little girl in her arms. I love you, she whispered. I love you so much. Even if you are not real, even if I never get to have you, I love you. The child smiled. I love you too, Mama. Lyra set her down gently. She turned to Kael, this happy version who had never been broken. I am sorry, she said, tears streaming down her face. I am so sorry. Lyra, what are you talking about? He reached for her, concerned. Lyra stepped back. This is not real. And I cannot keep you, even though I want to more than anything. She closed her eyes and reached for the bond. Reached for the real Kael, suffering in his own trial. And she shattered the illusion with pure will. The meadow exploded into fragments. Kael stood in a different scene. He was in his throne room, alone. Not unusual, but he felt different. Empty in a way that went beyond his usual coldness. A servant entered. My lord, the reports from the southern border. Leave them on the desk, Kael said mechanically. The servant bowed and left. Kael sat on his throne and felt nothing. Not cold, not warm. Just nothing. He had been like this for, how long? Years? Decades? Then the memory hit him. Lyra. The auction. He had seen her and chosen not to buy her. Had decided one broken omega was not worth the coin. She had been purchased by someone else. Taken away. And Sarah had died 3 days later. The curse had taken her. Kael had buried his sister and returned to his frozen existence. Alone. Forever alone. But somewhere, in a reality he had not chosen, Lyra was alive. He could feel her through a bond that had never formed. Could see her in his mind. She was happy. Mated to someone kind. Some gentle wolf who treated her well and made her smile. She had children. Had built a life. She was everything good in the world, and he had chosen to let her go. This is the 4th trial, a voice said. You can stay here. Accept that she is happy without you. Live with the emptiness. Or you can shatter this reality. Try to reach her. But doing so means ripping her from her happy life. She will suffer again. Choose. Kael gripped the arms of his throne. Lyra was happy. That was what mattered. What kind of selfish monster would he be to tear her from a good life just because he was lonely? But then he felt it. The real Lyra, through the real bond. She was suffering. She was in her own trial, facing her own impossible choice. She was choosing to save him over her own happiness. He knew it with absolute certainty. She was destroying her perfect life for him. You infuriating woman, Kael said, half laughing, half crying. Always sacrificing yourself. He stood from the throne. If she can give up everything for me, then I can bear being alone for her. If she is happy, truly happy, then I will live with this emptiness forever. That is what love means. He closed his eyes and shattered his own trial. The white space again. Kael and Lyra collapsed into each other, both sobbing. You destroyed it, Kael gasped. You destroyed your happy life. You chose my happiness over having me, Lyra cried. You chose to be alone forever if it meant I was safe. They held each other as if they were drowning and each was the other's only hope of air. For marks glowed on their wrists now. You passed, the oracle said, and she sounded like she was crying too. You both chose the other's well-being over your own desires. True love. The rarest thing. Sarah? Kael demanded hoarsely. Silence. Sarah? Kael roared. I am sorry, the oracle whispered. Her heart stopped. She is gone. No. Kael tried to stand, but his legs gave out. No, we have to finish. The 5th trial can still save her, the oracle said quickly. If you complete it, the Luna Prima power will be strong enough to resurrect her. But you must do it now. You have seconds. Lyra was barely conscious. Blood poured from every orifice. The poison had nearly won. Her body was shutting down. Lyra, Kael said urgently. We have to do the last trial. Right now. Cannot, Lyra slurred. Too weak. Dying. I know. But Sarah. I know. Lyra forced her eyes open. One more. Together. The 5th trial, the oracle said, her voice heavy with sorrow, is the death of death itself. One mate must die permanently. The other gains the Luna Prima's full power and can break any curse, even death. But the survivor must then choose. Keep the godlike power or sacrifice everything, power, wolf, immortality, to resurrect their mate. Most choose the power. How do we decide who dies? Lyra asked. The trial decides. It will force the choice. The white space began to turn red. Wait, Kael said desperately. If one of us has to die. There is no time, the oracle cut him off. The trial is beginning. May the moon goddess have mercy on you both. Kael grabbed Lyra's face. Listen to me. Whatever happens in there, know that I love you. I love you. I should have said it sooner. I love you too, Lyra said. I love you, and I am not sorry for any of it. If it comes down to a choice, Kael said fiercely, I choose you to live. Do you understand? I choose you. Like hell, Lyra said. I choose you. They were both crying now, knowing one of them was about to die and neither would surrender the other. Stubborn, impossible, perfect woman, Kael said. Stubborn, impossible, perfect man, Lyra answered. The red light swallowed them whole. The fifth trial, the death of death, had begun, and only one of them would leave it alive. The deepest love is willing to sacrifice everything, even being together. Kael and Lyra had already proven they could sacrifice their happiness for each other. Now they would have to prove they could sacrifice their lives. Chapter 9. The red light cleared. Kael and Lyra stood in a circular chamber with walls made of mirrors. In every reflection, they saw themselves dying in different ways. A countdown appeared in burning letters above them. 60 seconds. One of you must die, a cold, mechanical voice stated. Choose who lives and who dies. If you do not choose, all three die. Sarah cannot be saved. Your kingdom falls. The Void Council wins. 59 seconds. Me, Lyra said immediately. I choose myself. I have lived as a broken Omega my whole life. You are a king. You have purpose. People need you. Absolutely not, Kael snarled. I choose myself. I have been dead inside for 5 years. You just found your power, your truth. You deserve life. 58 seconds. The trial requires one mate to kill the other, the voice continued mercilessly. Not suicide. Murder. The living mate must strike the killing blow. They stared at each other in horror. 57 seconds. I cannot kill you, Lyra whispered. I will not kill you, Kael said firmly. Then we both die, Lyra said. And Sarah stays dead. Everything we suffered was for nothing. The mirrors showed them Sarah's body, cold and still in the real world. Showed the Void Council army approaching the palace. Showed the end of everything. 50 seconds. There has to be another way, Kael said desperately. There is not. Lyra's voice was steady despite her terror. This is the trial. One of us dies or everyone dies. 45 seconds. Lyra looked at the mirrors, seeing all the possible deaths. Then she saw something. A silver dagger, materialized in the center of the chamber. She moved toward it. Lyra, do not. She picked up the dagger. The blade gleamed with lethal purpose. 40 seconds. I am sorry, Lyra said, and before Kael could stop her, she plunged the dagger into her own heart. No! Kael screamed. Lyra fell. Kael caught her, his hands immediately going to the wound. Blood poured between his fingers. So much blood. Why? He roared. Why did you do that? Suicide does not count, Lyra gasped, blood bubbling from her lips. Trial requires you to finish it. Take the dagger, push it deeper. Save Sarah. Save everyone. 30 seconds. I cannot, Kael said, tears streaming down his face. Lyra, please, I cannot do this. You must. She reached up with a shaking hand and touched his face. I am already dying. The poison was going to kill me anyway. This way, it means something. Please. 25 seconds. Kael's hands were on the dagger still embedded in her chest. He could feel her heartbeat weakening against the blade. Could feel their mate bond stretching, tearing. I love you, Lyra whispered. That is why you have to let me go. Because you love me. Enough to let me choose this. 20 seconds. Kael thought about the trials. About Lyra standing in his worst memory and choosing not to hurt him. About her sacrificing her power. About her choosing to save him over her own happiness. She had been choosing him, over and over, this whole time. The least he could do was honor her final choice. 15 seconds. Forgive me, Kael whispered. Nothing to forgive, Lyra said. Just remember me. 10 seconds. Kael closed his eyes. His hands tightened on the dagger. 5 seconds. I love you, Lyra. I will love you until the stars die. 3 seconds. He pushed. The dagger drove through her heart completely. Lyra's body arched, then went still. The light left her eyes. Her hand fell from his face. She was gone. The countdown stopped at 0. The 5th trial mark burned onto Kael's wrist, completing the circle. All 5 marks ignited simultaneously. Power exploded through the chamber. The Luna Prima's essence, everything Lyra had been meant to become, transferred into Kael. He felt his alpha power return, multiplied 1,000-fold. Felt magic beyond comprehension flood his veins. Felt the curse on the royal bloodline shatter like glass. In the real world, Sarah gasped back to life. But Kael did not care. He knelt in the red chamber, holding Lyra's cooling body, and screamed. The sound was pure agony, the grief of a man who had just killed his mate with his own hands. The power meant nothing. Saving Sarah meant nothing. Living meant nothing. Lyra was dead. The 5th trial is complete, the oracle's voice said, but she was weeping. You have proven your love. The Luna Prima's power is yours. I do not want it, Kael said hoarsely. I want her back. That is not how. I do not want the power. Kael roared, his voice shaking the chamber. I want her. Give her back to me. The oracle appeared, tears streaming down her ancient face. The 5th trial is called the death of death for a reason, she said softly. It tests whether love can transcend mortality itself. Kael looked up at her, barely seeing through his tears. You can keep the power, the oracle continued. Become the most powerful being alive. Rule for 10,000 years. Reshape the world. But Lyra stays dead. Or, Kael's voice was desperate. Or you give everything. The Luna Prima power. Your alpha wolf. Your immortality. Your throne. Everything that makes you powerful. Become human. Mortal. Powerless. And she might be returned to you. Might, Kael said sharply. The magic must judge if your love is pure enough. If your sacrifice is complete enough. Most mates choose the power. The temptation is too strong. The oracle looked at him sadly. What will you choose? Godhood alone or mortality together? Kael did not hesitate even a heartbeat. Take it, he said fiercely. Take everything. Take my power, my wolf, my immortality, my throne. Take my life if you need it. Just give her back to me. You will be human, the oracle warned. Fragile. Mortal. You will grow old and die. With her, Kael said. I will grow old and die with her. That is all I want. You will have no power to protect her. I will protect her with everything I have left. My hands. My heart. My life. Kael looked down at Lyra's face. She chose to die for me. The least I can do is choose to live as a mortal for her. The oracle's expression shifted into something like wonder. In 3,000 years of trials, you are the first to choose this without hesitation. Then everyone else was a fool, Kael said. Now take the power and bring her back. The oracle raised her hands. The 5 marks on Kael's wrist began to burn. The Luna Prima power was ripped from his body in a blaze of light. His alpha wolf howled once, then dissolved. His immortal essence drained away like water. Kael collapsed, suddenly human, suddenly fragile, suddenly aware of every ache and pain in his mortal body. But he kept his arms around Lyra. The power flowed into her body. The dagger wound in her chest sealed. The poison in her veins evaporated. Color returned to her face. Her heart beat once. Twice. Lyra gasped, her eyes flying open. Kael, she whispered. I am here, he said, sobbing in relief. I am right here. What did you do? She could feel the power in her veins, could feel her wolf return stronger than ever, could feel the Luna Prima magic singing through her. And she could feel through the bond that Kael was human. Powerless. Mortal. What did you do? She asked again, horrified. I chose you, Kael said simply. Over everything. I will always choose you. Real love means choosing the person over power, every single time. Kael had just proven that. But what he did not know yet was that his sacrifice had set in motion something that had never happened before in history. The trials were not quite finished. Chapter 10. What happens when love proves so pure that it rewrites the very laws of nature, and the people who tried to destroy you end up witnessing your greatest triumph. Lyra sat up, and power radiated from her like physical light. The Luna Prima was fully awakened. She could feel everything, every wolf in the kingdom, every heartbeat, every life force. The connection was overwhelming, beautiful, terrifying. And she could feel Kael. Human. Fragile. Mortal. Her heart clenched with panic. No, she said, her voice breaking. No, you cannot have done this. You gave up everything. Your alpha power, your immortality, your wolf. I gave up nothing that mattered, Kael interrupted, reaching for her face with hands that no longer carried supernatural strength. You are alive. That is all that matters. That is everything. But you are powerless now, Lyra said desperately. Vulnerable. You could be killed by any common blade, any poison, any. I know. He smiled, actually smiled, and it transformed his entire face. The ice that had lived there for 5 years was completely gone, replaced by warmth that made him look years younger. And I do not care. Lyra, I spent 5 years with all the power in the world and felt nothing. Nothing but cold and emptiness. Now I am human and I feel everything. Joy. Fear. Hope. Love. I feel you. That is enough. That is more than enough. Lyra threw her arms around him, and they held each other in the red chamber that was beginning to fade. She could feel the difference. His heartbeat was stronger now, more present, without the supernatural energy that had always hummed beneath an alpha's skin. He was warm and real and mortal in hers. I cannot lose you, she whispered against his chest. Not after everything. You will not, Kael promised. We have each other. That is all we need. The oracle watched them with tears of joy streaming down her ancient face. The trial is complete. The Luna Prima lives. The mate bond is forged. And for the first time in 3,000 years of recorded history, love conquered death through pure, selfless sacrifice. You two have rewritten the laws of fate itself. The chamber dissolved around them like morning mist. They were back in the ancient library, the stone floor solid beneath their feet. Sarah was sitting up on the ritual circle, fully healed, color in her cheeks, staring at them with wide, disbelieving eyes. You are alive, Sarah breathed. Both of you. You both survived. But brother, your power, I cannot feel your alpha presence anymore. Is exactly where it should be, Kael said, still holding Lyra close. With her. Where it has always belonged. Lyra stood slowly, and the Luna Prima power blazed around her like a cloak of starlight. She could feel it singing in her veins, ancient and new at once. This was what she had always been meant to be, what her pack had stolen from her before she could even understand. She raised her hand toward Sarah, and silver light flowed from her palm like water. It wrapped around Sarah in ribbons of pure magic. The curse's remnants, clinging to Sarah's soul like black thorns, disintegrated. Completely. Permanently. Lyra could see them burning away, could feel the dark magic screaming as it died. Sarah gasped as she felt the curse break for the first time in her life. Her hand went to her chest, where the curse had always lived like a second heartbeat counting down to her death. It is gone. Really, truly gone. I can feel it. I am free. You will live, Lyra said softly, lowering her hand. The curse can never touch you or any royal female again. I rewrote the magic at its source. Broke it from the root. Your daughters and granddaughters will never know this fear. Sarah started crying, deep sobs of relief and joy. Lyra knelt beside her despite her exhaustion, pulling her into a fierce hug. Thank you, Sarah sobbed against her shoulder. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for saving my brother. Thank you for not giving up when every logical person would have. Your brother saved me first, Lyra said, looking at Kael over Sarah's shoulder. He bought me when I was broken. Sat by my bedside when I was dying. Gave up everything he was to bring me back. We saved each other. That is what real love does. Kael moved to join them, and for a long moment, the three of them simply held each other. 3 broken people who had survived impossible trials and come out whole on the other side. A family forged not by blood alone, but by sacrifice and choice. Then the oracle spoke, her voice filled with awe and something like fear. But there is more. Look. Look at him. She pointed at Kael with a trembling hand. He was glowing. Faintly at first, like embers in ash, then brighter and brighter. What is happening? Kael asked, alarmed. He pulled back from the embrace, staring at his hands as light began to pour from his skin. I thought the transformation was finished. True sacrifice is never forgotten by fate, the oracle said, her voice taking on the resonance of prophecy. You gave up everything for love. Every scrap of power. Every advantage. Chose mortality and vulnerability over godhood. The moon goddess herself has taken notice. She is answering your sacrifice. Light exploded from Kael's chest like a star being born. He screamed, but not in pain. In transformation. In rebirth. His body was changing, cells rewriting themselves, magic flowing into spaces where his alpha wolf used to live. Not the same power returning, something new. Something that had never existed before in all the history of their kind. Lyra watched in wonder and terror, her hand outstretched but not touching, afraid to interfere with whatever was happening. When the light finally faded, Kael stood different. Changed. His eyes glowed with silver and gold mixed together, swirling like galaxies. He had power again, she could feel it through the bond, but it felt nothing like alpha dominance. It felt like balance, like life and death walking hand in hand, like the space between heartbeats where anything is possible. What am I? Kael asked, his voice layered with harmonics that had not been there before. The oracle fell to her knees, something Lyra had never seen her do before. A soul guardian, the first in all of existence. A being who walks between life and death, who protects the balance between power and love, who cannot be killed by normal means because you exist partially outside of life itself. You will age with your mate but never lose each other. You are her perfect complement, her equal in every way. Lyra felt the bond shift and strengthen, like a rope becoming a steel cable. They were equals now in every possible way. Her Luna Prima power and his soul guardian essence, two halves of one whole, balanced perfectly. We match, Lyra said wonderingly, reaching for him. Always have, Kael said, taking her hand. The moment they touched, the mate bond blazed so brightly that everyone in the room had to shield their eyes. I just had to lose everything to see it. Had to become nothing to become everything. They pressed their foreheads together, and the mate bond solidified completely. Unbreakable. Eternal. Perfect. Lyra could feel everything Kael felt, and he could feel her in return. They were still individuals, but they were also one. United in a way that transcended even normal mate bonds. But before they could savor the moment, alarms rang through the palace. The sound of horns, urgent and afraid. Guards burst into the library, their faces pale. My lord. My lady. The palace is surrounded. An army at the gates. Kael and Lyra exchanged one glance and ran. Their new powers made them faster than before. Lyra moved like moonlight, Kael like a shadow. They reached the highest tower in seconds, Sarah and the oracle close behind. Below, an army had gathered. Hundreds of wolves bearing the mark of the Shadowpine pack. Lyra's original pack. The ones who had tortured her, sold her, tried to kill her. At the front stood her father and the pack elders who had supervised her abuse. What do they want? Sarah asked, her hand going to a dagger at her belt. Revenge? To finish what they started. Probably to finish what they started, Lyra said grimly, her Luna Prima power already gathering in her hands. After everything, they still would not leave her alone. A messenger arrived, breathless and confused. They request an audience. They say they came to beg forgiveness? Everyone turned to stare at Lyra. She looked at Kael. He nodded. Your choice, he said simply. Whatever you decide, I stand with you. Let them in, Lyra said after a long moment. I want to hear what they have to say. I want to look them in the eyes. They gathered in the throne room. Kael stood beside the throne rather than on it. They had already decided to rule together as equals. Lyra sat on the throne, the Luna Prima in her full glory, power crackling around her like lightning. Kael the Soul Guardian stood at her right hand, ready to defend or support as needed. Lyra's father and the Shadowpine elders were brought in, shackled in silver. They fell to their knees immediately, pressing their foreheads to the marble floor. Speak, Lyra said, her voice carrying the weight of ancient power. She sounded like a queen, like a goddess, like everything they had tried to destroy. Her father looked up, and Lyra was shocked to see genuine terror and remorse in his eyes. We were forced, he said hoarsely. Please, Luna Prima, you must understand, we were forced. Forced? Lyra's laugh was cold. You were forced to sell your own daughter to slavers? Forced to watch Marcus reject me and do nothing? Forced to poison me so I would die slowly and painfully? Yes. Her father was weeping now, ugly, desperate sobs. The Void Council came to us 3 generations ago. They had prophecies, ancient texts. They knew a Luna Prima would be born to our pack within the century. They forced us to make blood oaths. If we did not suppress your power, did not break you completely, they would kill every member of our pack. Every child. Every elder. Everyone. You sold me to save yourselves, Lyra said flatly. We sold you to save 3,000 lives, one of the elders said, his voice shaking. We made a terrible choice. An unforgivable choice. But we made it to save our people. And we have paid for it, another elder added. O goddess, how we have paid. What do you mean? Kael asked, his soul guardian senses reading the truth in their words. Her father looked up, and Lyra saw something break behind his eyes. 3 days ago, the Void Council headquarters was obliterated. Every member, every agent, every asset, turned to ash in an instant. We felt it through our blood oaths to them. The oaths broke like chains shattering, and we were free. Free for the first time in 3 generations. Lyra looked at the oracle, who smiled knowingly. When you completed the 5th trial, when love proved powerful enough to transcend death itself, it created a shockwave of pure Luna Prima energy. That energy is anathema to dark magic, to manipulation, to corruption. It destroyed the Void Council automatically, along with every blood oath and dark spell they had ever cast. They never saw it coming. They were annihilated before they could even scream. Her father continued, his voice breaking. When we felt the oaths break, we knew. We understood. You survived. You awakened. You became what you were always meant to be. And we came to beg for mercy, knowing we deserve none. We came to tell you the truth, even if you kill us for it. We came to face justice for what we did to you. Lyra stared at the wolves who had tortured her entire life, who had made her believe she was worthless, who had stood by while Marcus destroyed her in front of the entire pack, who had handed her over to slavers with cold eyes and colder hearts. She felt Kael's hand on her shoulder, supportive but not controlling. The choice was entirely hers. You do not deserve mercy, Lyra said finally, her voice like steel. You deserve to suffer as you made me suffer. You deserve to die slowly, painfully, knowing that no one will save you, that no one will mourn you. Her father bowed his head, accepting his fate. The other elders did the same. But, Lyra continued, and saw head snap up in surprise, I am not who I was. I am not the broken Omega you sold like cattle. I am the Luna Prima, and I will not start my reign with revenge. I will not become what you made me believe I was, worthless and cruel. She stood and walked down from the throne, each step deliberate. You will return to your pack. You will tell them everything, every detail of what you did to me. You will establish new laws protecting Omegas and the powerless. You will spend the rest of your lives making amends for your sins. You will build sanctuaries, create protections, ensure that no child ever suffers what I suffered. She stopped in front of her father, looking down at him. If you fail, if you hurt anyone the way you hurt me, if you return to your old ways, I will know. My power reaches across continents now, and I will end you. All of you. Permanently. Do you understand? Yes, Luna Prima, they said in unison, voices thick with shock and gratitude they did not deserve. Now get out of my sight. You have much work to do. The Shadowpine wolves were escorted out by guards. As her father passed Lyra, he paused, chains clinking. I am sorry, he whispered, his voice raw with emotion. For whatever it is worth, for all the good it does, I am so sorry. You deserved better. You deserved everything. And we stole it from you. Lyra said nothing, just stared at him until he dropped his gaze and shuffled away. Some wounds were too deep for apologies to heal. Some betrayals cut too close to the bone. But she could choose not to let those wounds define her future. When they were finally alone again, Kael pulled Lyra into his arms. You showed mercy. I showed strength, Lyra corrected, leaning into him. Mercy is not weakness. It is the hardest choice of all. Killing them would have been easy, satisfying, but it would not have changed anything. This way they live with what they did, and they work to make sure it never happens again. I am in awe of you, Kael said softly, pressing a kiss to her temple. Good, Lyra teased, some of her old spark returning. Keep that energy. Sarah laughed, the sound bright and full of life and health. What happens now? You have broken a curse, destroyed an evil organization, shown mercy to your enemies. What do you do for an encore? Lyra looked out the massive windows at the kingdom spread below them, at the city where wolves of every rank lived and worked, at the mountains beyond, at the world that had tried to break her and failed. Now we rebuild, she said quietly. We create a world where no one is marked as lesser because of their birth, where Omegas are protected and valued, where power is not measured only in strength, but in compassion and wisdom, where children grow up safe and loved instead of broken and afraid. They stood together, looking out at their future, as the sun set on one age and rose on another. Real love means choosing the person over power, every single time. Kael and Lyra had proven that beyond any doubt. And now they would prove that love could change not just individual lives, but entire worlds. 3 months later, the palace had been transformed. Lyra had established councils that included Omegas and lower-ranked wolves. She had outlawed the sale of any wolf and created sanctuaries for those who had been abused. Kael worked beside her, using his soul guardian abilities to sense threats before they manifested and to heal those whose spirits had been broken by trauma. They were a perfect team. One evening, Lyra collapsed during a council meeting. Kael caught her instantly, panic flooding the bond. "I am fine," Lyra said. "Just dizzy." But the palace healer was summoned anyway. She examined Lyra, and then looked up with wonder. "My lady, you are pregnant." Silence. Then Sarah shrieked with joy and tackled Lyra in a hug. "I am going to be an aunt." Kael stood frozen, his eyes wide. "Pregnant? But I am human now. The child of a Luna Prima and a human. Has never existed before," the healer confirmed. "This child will be unique in all of history." That night, as they lay in bed, Kael's hand rested on Lyra's still flat stomach. "Are you afraid?" he asked. "Terrified," Lyra admitted. "But also excited. We will figure it out together." "Together," Kael agreed. "Always." Through the bond, they felt each other's love, steady and unshakable. 6 months later, Lyra's pregnancy progressed normally, though the baby's power was already evident. Sometimes, when Lyra dreamed, silver light would glow from her belly. The oracle visited regularly, monitoring the unprecedented situation. "The child will be a bridge," she prophesied, "between all supernatural races, between life and death, between power and humanity." "No pressure, little one," Lyra said to her stomach. Then one afternoon, Kael was in the training yard when he suddenly doubled over in pain. Sarah found him on his knees, gasping. "Brother, what is wrong?" "I do not know," Kael said. "It feels like—" His body began to glow again. The transformation that had made him a soul guardian was not finished. Light exploded from him, and this time, it did not stop. It grew brighter and brighter until everyone had to look away. When it finally faded, Kael stood different again. More power radiated from him. His eyes now held galaxies. The oracle appeared, summoned by the surge of energy. She took one look at Kael and fell to her knees again. "Impossible," she breathed. "What happened to me?" Kael demanded. "You sacrificed everything for love," the oracle said. "And fate rewards true sacrifice. You are no longer just a soul guardian. You have become something greater. A true mate ascended. Your power now matches your mate's exactly. You and Lyra are perfectly balanced, 2 halves of one whole." Lyra arrived, running from the palace despite her pregnancy. She felt the change through the bond. When she saw Kael, she understood immediately. They were equals in every way now. Not because she had been diminished, but because he had been elevated through love. They reached for each other, and when their hands touched, the mate bond blazed so brightly that it was visible for miles. A beacon of pure love and power. "We really cannot do anything normally, can we?" Lyra said. Kael laughed. "Would you want to?" "Not even a little." 2 weeks later, the baby decided to come early. Lyra's labor was intense but mercifully short. Kael stayed by her side the entire time, using his power to ease her pain and give her strength. When the baby finally arrived, the entire palace fell silent. The child was perfect. A girl with Kael's dark hair and Lyra's eyes. But when she opened her eyes for the first time, they held something unprecedented. Silver and gold mixed together, with flecks of every color imaginable. "She is beautiful," Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her face. The oracle examined the baby with wonder. "She is not just Luna Prima, not just soul guardian. She is both and more. This child will have the ability to unite all supernatural races, werewolves, vampires, fae, witches. She is the bridge prophesied to bring lasting peace." "No pressure," Lyra said again, but she was smiling as she held her daughter close. "What will you name her?" Kael asked. Lyra looked at Kael, then at Sarah, then at their daughter. "Hope," she said. "Her name is Hope, because she represents everything we fought for, everything we nearly died for. She is our hope made real." "Hope," Kael repeated, and his voice was thick with emotion. "Perfect." But the story was not quite finished. 3 days after Hope's birth, a messenger arrived at the palace, breathless and terrified. "My lady, my lord, there are people at the gates." Hundreds of them. Lyra and Kael exchanged glances. They were still recovering from the birth, but they went to the walls together. Below, a massive crowd had gathered. But they were not armed. They carried flowers and gifts. At the front stood representatives from every major supernatural faction. Vampires, fae, witches, shifters of every kind. An ancient vampire stepped forward. "Luna Prima," she called. "We felt the birth of your child, felt the power ripple through the supernatural world. We come to pay homage and to pledge our support. If the prophecy is true, if your daughter can unite us all, then we wish to be part of that future." Lyra looked at Kael, shocked. It seems, Kael said quietly, our daughter is already changing the world. A Fey Lord stepped forward next. We have warred with each other for millennia. But perhaps it is time for something new. Peace. Unity. If you will lead us, Luna Prima, we will follow. I do not want to rule you, Lyra said. I want to partner with you. Create a council of equals, where every race has a voice. The crowd murmured in approval. Then let us begin, the vampire said. A new era starts today. 1 year later, the Great Council had been established. Representatives from every supernatural race met regularly at the palace, which had been renamed the Haven of Unity. Lyra and Kael ruled together, perfect partners in every way. Hope was growing rapidly, already showing signs of incredible power tempered by compassion. One evening, as they stood on the palace balcony watching the sunset, Hope sleeping in Lyra's arms, Kael asked the question that had been on his mind. Are you afraid? Of what comes next? Lyra thought about everything they had survived. The auction, the poison, the trials, the deaths and rebirths, the impossible love that had conquered everything. I died and came back, she said, echoing words from what felt like a lifetime ago. There is nothing left to fear, only things left to protect. She looked at Kael, at Hope, at the kingdom spread below them where wolves of every rank lived in peace. We did it, she said softly. We survived. We won. We did more than survive, Kael said. We changed everything. Hope stirred in Lyra's arms, opening her eyes. Those incredible multicolored eyes looked up at her parents, and the baby smiled. Through their bond, Lyra and Kael felt Hope's love, pure and uncomplicated. Felt her power, vast but controlled. Felt the future she represented. Are you ready for what comes next? Lyra asked Kael. With you? Kael pulled both his mate and his daughter close. I am ready for anything. They kissed as the sun set on one era and rose on another. An era of peace, of unity, of love that had literally conquered death. And somewhere in the shadows, watching from afar, the moon goddess smiled. Her greatest champions had proven that love, true love, was the most powerful force in any universe. That the broken, when healed, became the strongest. That sacrifice created more power than domination ever could. The Luna Prima and her soul guardian had rewritten the rules of fate itself. And their story, their impossible love, would be told for 1,000 generations. Epilogue 20 years later. Hope had grown into a remarkable young woman. She traveled between supernatural communities, mediating disputes and building bridges. The peace held. Lyra and Kael had aged as mortals do, but their power remained strong. They had given up immortality for each other, but gained something better, a life fully lived, fully loved, fully experienced. On their 20th anniversary, they returned to the place where it all began. The auction house where Kael had bought a broken Omega for an astronomical price. It had been turned into a sanctuary for abused wolves. A place of healing instead of suffering. Do you regret it? Lyra asked as they walked through the transformed building. Giving up your immortality? Your alpha power? Kael looked at her, at the silver threads in her hair, at the laugh lines around her eyes, at the life they had built together. Never, he said. I would make the same choice 1,000 times over. Every moment with you has been worth more than eternity alone. Even when I am old and gray? Lyra teased. Especially then. Kael pulled her close. We will grow old together, die together, and whatever comes after, we will face that together too. Together, Lyra agreed. Always together. They kissed in the place where their story began, two broken people who had healed each other and changed the world in the process. And if you listened closely, you could hear the moon goddess laughing with joy. Because this right here was what love was meant to be. Not perfect, not easy, not without sacrifice, but worth it. Always, always worth it. Thank you so much for watching this story. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel for more heartfelt and emotional stories like this one. Don't forget to like this video and leave a comment sharing your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. Your support truly means the world and helps me create even more amazing content for you. Make sure to turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. See you in the next video.